3 months ago, my 10th wedding anniversary dinner turned into the most mortifying experience of my life, thanks to my own family. The fallout has been intense, and it's still weighing on me. Here's some context to set the stage. I'm Ethan, 32, married to Sarah for a decade. We met in college, and while we've faced challenges, I thought we were solid. I work in IT support, not a high-flying career, but it keeps us comfortable. Sarah teaches at a local elementary school. We're not rich, but we've built a stable, content life, or so I believed. My family, however, has always cast a shadow over me. I've long been the family letdown. My older brother, Liam, earned an engineering degree and now thrives at a tech startup. My sister, Ava, married her high school sweetheart, who runs a booming construction company, and she never misses a chance to flaunt it. My parents, Robert and Diane, have always dropped subtle jabs about my slower path to success, urging me to aim higher like my siblings. Early in our marriage, Sarah would step in, deflecting their remarks or shifting the conversation when things got tense. But over time, that stopped. She started chuckling at their barbs or staying silent when they poked at my job or our modest lifestyle. I told myself she was just avoiding conflict, but looking back, I suspect she began to agree with them. The anniversary dinner was at a charming Italian restaurant downtown, not extravagant, but a step above our usual haunts. My parents made the trip. Liam brought his girlfriend, Emma, and Ava showed up with her husband. My uncle Greg joined too. It was a full family gathering to mark our milestone. At first, everything felt normal. We ordered drinks, caught up, and chatted casually. Sarah seemed quieter than usual, but I chalked it up to a long week at work. Then my mom stood up, wine glass in hand, and I braced for a heartfelt toast about love and commitment. Instead, she declared to the whole restaurant that 10 years was how long this poor woman had endured our family's biggest failure, and Sarah deserved an award for her patience. The table froze for a moment before my dad burst out laughing, saying they'd been placing bets on whether Sarah would leave me by the holidays, as no woman as sharp as her would stick with a loser forever. I was stunned, trying to process it, when Liam jumped in. He mocked my proposal, calling it pitiful and claiming everyone knew Sarah only accepted out of sympathy. That stung deeply. I'd worked extra shifts for months, skipping meals and walking to work to save for that modest ring. Then Ava chimed in, casually mentioning that Sarah had confided she was already seeing someone successful and who could blame her. Uncle Greg found this hilarious, joking that at least she'd get half of nothing in a divorce. The table exploded in laughter while I sat there, dumbfounded, as my family tore me down on what should have been a joyful night. Nearby diners started glancing over at the commotion. But the real gut punch came from Sarah. My wife of 10 years, who I thought was my rock, giggled. She didn't stand up for me, didn't tell them to stop, just sat there, smiling like she was in on the joke. I raised my glass, took a deliberate sip, and forced a smile. I didn't lash out or cause a scene. I just said the food was getting cold and suggested we eat. The conversation moved on, but something inside me broke. Driving home, I was silent while Sarah tried to chat about how nice it was to see everyone. She acted like the whole ordeal was just playful teasing and told me I was overreacting. At home, I said I needed air and went for a 3-hour walk. Those hours wandering our neighborhood brought a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I realized this wasn't the first time my family had treated me like the black sheep. Nor was it the first time Sarah had let their jabs slide or even joined in. The next morning, over coffee, Sarah said my family was just kidding and that I needed to lighten up. She mentioned my mom had called her, and they'd had a pleasant talk about how touchy I'd become. That's when I knew she didn't understand. I started making changes, not loud, dramatic ones, but quiet, deliberate steps to reclaim my life. I stopped engaging in the family group chat. When my mom called to gripe about my distance, I kept it brief and factual. When Sarah asked why I was acting strange, I said I was focused on work. But once I stopped chasing their approval and started prioritizing myself, things improved fast. I landed a senior role at a new tech firm with a solid raise. My new team respected my skills, treating me like a valued professional. I joined a gym, not for anyone else, but to feel stronger in body and mind. I signed up for a local hiking club, connecting with people who genuinely valued me. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by people who didn't see me as a target. These changes rippled through my life. I slept better, felt confident at work, and enjoyed my free time instead of dreading family obligations. I started buying clothes I actually liked, not just the cheapest options. I traded my old clunker for a reliable used SUV, Nothing flashy, but a choice I made for myself. Sarah noticed but seemed to think it was a passing phase. She kept pushing for family gatherings, confused when I opted out. My family started asking her why I was being so distant, unable to connect their actions to my withdrawal. 6 weeks after the dinner, things escalated. Liam called not to apologize, but to complain that my absence was making family events awkward. He said Mom was hurt by my attitude and that I needed to move on. When I asked if he recalled the dinner, he dismissed it as harmless fun, saying I used to take jokes better. That call showed me they didn't grasp the damage they'd caused. They expected me to return to being the family punching bag because that's what kept their dynamic comfortable. Mom called Sarah whining about my phase, and they had long talks about how I was overreacting. But this wasn't a phase, it was me finally valuing myself. At my new job, my boss praised my problem-solving and hinted at a team lead role soon. My hiking group invited me on a weekend mountain trip. These people saw worth in me that my family never had. I started declining invitations outright, no longer making excuses. When Sarah pushed me to attend her birthday party with my family, I told her I wouldn't be around people who disrespected me without accountability. She couldn't understand why I was holding on to hurt, instead of moving past it like I always had. The breaking point came when Ava invited us to her anniversary party. She had the audacity to say my absence was embarrassing the family and that people were asking what was wrong with me. When I explained how their humiliation at my anniversary dinner had affected me, she got defensive, saying I was too sensitive and that everyone was just having fun. That's when I realized they weren't sorry. They were only upset about the consequences of my boundaries. None of them had apologized or acknowledged their behavior. They just wanted me back in my old role so their lives could stay comfortable. Then came the morning my phone exploded with 53 missed calls from family members, all leaving frantic, tearful voicemails. Update 1. The response to my original post was overwhelming, and some of you predicted this perfectly. Props to the commenter who said my family would freak out once they realized their scapegoat was gone. You were right. Those 53 calls were a meltdown, and the conversations that followed were even more telling than I expected. While I was building a better life, my absence was causing chaos for my family. Mom had been planning Dad's retirement party, expecting me to handle the tech setup, slideshow, and guest list like always. Without me, she struggled to organize it herself. Liam had counted on me to help move into his new place with my truck, as I'd always been the reliable one for manual tasks. When I didn't respond, he had to shell out $400 for movers. But the real trigger was Thanksgiving. Mom had promised the extended family a big gathering, but my refusal to attend or help with prep sent her into a panic. She called Sarah, sobbing, asking why I was punishing everyone. Sarah told her I was upset about the anniversary dinner but framed it as me being overly dramatic. This led to the call barrage. My family decided I needed an intervention to fix my crisis before I ruined the holidays. The voicemails were all about how my behavior was hurting them, with no apologies or acknowledgement of their actions. I called Mom back first. She was in tears, asking why I was doing this to the family. I laid out the dinner in detail, her toast calling me a failure, Dad's divorce bets, Liam's proposal jab, Ava's cheating lie, and their collective laughter. I told her how humiliated I felt and that no one had apologized. She insisted I was misremembering, that it was all playful teasing, and that I'd become too sensitive. She said families joke like that, and I was blowing it out of proportion. I asked if she thought it was normal to publicly shame your son at his anniversary. She got defensive, saying she was just being funny and that everyone admired Sarah for putting up with me. When I pointed out that calling me dead weight wasn't a compliment to Sarah, she accused me of twisting her words. The call lasted 2 hours as she tried guilt-tripping me about Dad's party, bargaining for gentler jokes, and manipulating me with Sarah's supposed worry about our marriage. I held firm, saying I wasn't interested in half measures. I wanted respect. She got angry, called me selfish, and said I was tearing the family apart over nothing. She hung up. Dad called next, furious that I'd upset Mom. He said real men don't hold grudges over jokes and dismissed his divorce comment as harmless. When I asked how he'd feel if I joked about his marriage failing, he said it was different because his was solid, implying mine wasn't. Liam tried to mediate, suggesting a family meeting, but insisted I apologize for overreacting. Ava admitted she'd lied about Sarah cheating just to join the fun, then cried that I was being mean by staying away. None of them saw their actions as wrong. They were only upset about the fallout. These calls confirmed I'd made the right choice. Their responses showed who they really were, and it wasn't flattering. But while I was dealing with them, Sarah was grappling with her own stance. Update 2 Reddit, you were right. Some of you predicted Sarah's reaction perfectly. The commenter who said to watch how she'd choose sides hit the nail on the head. After those draining calls, I came home hoping for support from Sarah. Instead, she ambushed me at the kitchen table, laptop open, saying my family had been calling her all day. She said I was being cruel and unreasonable. Mom was crying, Dad was reconsidering his party, and I was causing chaos. I explained my conversations, including Ava's lie about her cheating, but Sarah was more concerned about the family rift than Ava's betrayal. She said Ava was just trying to fit in and that everyone was just having fun at the dinner. She called me too sensitive for holding on to it. I asked whose side she was on. She said there shouldn't be sides, we're family. I called that a dodge and asked if she thought their behavior was acceptable. She admitted the comments happened but said they weren't malicious, just poorly judged humor. She called their concerns sweet and said I should appreciate it. I was floored. My wife thought I should be grateful for their worry after they humiliated me and refused to apologize. I asked why she'd laughed at their jokes. She said she was just keeping things light to avoid awkwardness. I told her laughter made me feel like even my wife thought I deserved it. She got mad, saying I was twisting her words and that she'd never want to hurt me, but that I was too sensitive about long-standing family dynamics. I asked when she'd decided I should just take their abuse. She accused me of using loaded terms to guilt-trip her, insisting teasing wasn't abuse. I pointed out that publicly shaming someone, joking about their marriage failing, or lying about their spouse cheating wasn't normal. She said I was focusing on the negatives instead of the family's love. She admitted she loved being part of a tight-knit family and that my distance threatened that. I asked if she'd rather I accept disrespect to preserve her connection to them. She denied it but kept pushing for a middle ground where I'd overlook their behavior. I asked her to name one time my family had supported me as an adult, celebrated my successes, or backed me up. She couldn't, falling back on childhood memories or early marriage help. That's when I knew our marriage was in trouble. Sarah didn't just fail to support me, she didn't believe I deserved better treatment. She thought family ties justified disrespect and that I should tolerate it. The conversation stretched for hours, circling the same divide. I believed I deserved respect from everyone, including family. Sarah thought family deserved a pass. She suggested couples counseling to help me process my anger, implying I was the issue. I said I'd consider it if she'd question her own stance, but she clearly saw me as the one needing to change. That realization hit hard. Our problems weren't just about the dinner, but about core differences in how we viewed respect and boundaries. Over the next weeks, Sarah kept pushing for family reconciliation, framing their calls and texts as proof they cared. She suggested compromises like small dinners or avoiding the dinner topic, but I refused to pretend nothing happened. The more she pushed, the clearer it became. She preferred the old me, the one who took the abuse quietly. My new boundaries made her uncomfortable. That led to the final, pivotal conversation. Final update. Reddit, this is it. The conclusion many of you saw coming. 3 days ago, I had the most critical talk of our marriage, one that changed everything. I'd been reflecting for weeks, realizing the dinner, the calls, and Sarah's lack of support were symptoms of a deeper issue. Did we share the same values about respect and boundaries? On Saturday morning, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and told Sarah we needed to discuss our marriage's future. She immediately asked if I was talking divorce. I said I wasn't deciding anything yet, but we had serious issues to resolve. I asked if she'd expect me to keep ties with my family if they never apologized and kept treating me poorly. She said I was being unfair, that they'd come around if I showed up and acted normal. I said that mindset enabled their behavior for years. I wasn't responsible for fixing relationships they damaged. Sarah said I was too rigid, that families sometimes hurt each other unintentionally, and grudges would ruin any family. I asked if she thought their treatment of me was acceptable or if I deserved better. She dodged, talking about maintaining family bonds and how rare a close-knit family like mine was. I pressed, would she be okay with our future kids being treated like I was, called failures, mocked for their efforts, lied about at their milestones? She paused, admitting she wouldn't want them hurt, but hoped we'd teach them to handle family dynamics better than I had. That was the crux. She thought the problem was my reaction, not their actions. Sarah got frustrated, saying I was twisting her words and making it sound worse. She said she loved me, but that I was forcing her to choose between me and my family. I said they'd created the choice by prioritizing cruelty over respect, and she'd made hers by laughing along. She cried, saying she laughed to avoid tension, not because she agreed. But I told her that her laughter and her refusal to see their behavior as wrong showed where she stood. We talked for hours, but it came down to this. I believed I deserved respect from everyone. Sarah believed family deserved leniency. She saw my boundaries as prideful destruction of family ties. I saw tolerating disrespect as being a doormat. She said I'd changed, becoming rigid and unforgiving. I agreed. I'd learned to value myself and demand better. If she saw that as a flaw, maybe she needed to rethink her values. The conversation ended with us both angry. The next morning, Sarah suggested counseling again, but her framing, that I needed to manage my anger, showed she still saw me as the problem. I said I'd consider it if she'd question her own stance, but I wasn't open to therapy that assumed I should tolerate disrespect. That was 3 days ago, and we're at a crossroads. I don't know if our marriage can survive this fundamental divide, but I know I won't go back to being anyone's punching bag, not for my family and not for Sarah.